everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video is step or part number 2 in our crochet along the hooded shawl or wrap shawl with pockets. In part number 1, we stitched up our shawl portion of our wrap shawl. Today we're going to crochet up the hood and then attach it to the shawl. And it's a very simple pattern again because our hood is basically stitched in all double crochets. And again, you can see that I used striped yarn. But we'll talk more about the yarn in just a second. Now, if you're looking for part number 1, you can find that YouTube link right up there. Just click that link and it'll take you to part number 1. Also, the complete pattern is on my blog, and you can find that pattern link down in the notes underneath this video. Now I'm still going to be using the same yarn, the Heat Wave from Redheart, in these 4 colors, just like I did on my shawl portion. I'm doing the same thing on my hood. And again, you can use any medium weight number 4 yarn for this project. And also again, the entire amount that you need is roughly about 20 ounces to make the shawl, the hood, and the pockets. Today we are stitching with our J hook, which is a 6.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need your needle to weave in ends. You'll need your scissors, and remember to keep your tape measure handy so you can adjust the hood to fit you. Now it will fit approximately a 24-inch head. We've designed it to be a little bit roomy because we want you to be able to wrap that shawl around you and that hood nice and snug. Wrap it around your head and it fits great. Now, I will explain to you how to make the hood a little bigger, a little wider as we go along if you want it to be just a little bit bigger. We're going to work the hood starting from the back. We'll be working on both sides of the chain, and we'll be working in rows, working back and forth like this. We're going to begin by chaining 38 chains. And again, we need to remember to stitch this initial 38 chains just a little bit loosely. So I've made my slip knot, and now I'm going to chain my 38 chains just a little bit loose. I have chained my 38 chains, and now we're going to stitch a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. We don't count the loop on our crochet hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through both loops, yarn over, and go through the last 2 loops. And now I'm going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of the chains all the way across until I reach that last double crochet. And then we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the last stitch. So 1 double crochet in each of the chains across until I reach that last chain stitch. We started in the 4th chain from the hook. Our chain 3 counts as 1, and then we stitched 1 double crochet in each of the stitches across until we reach that last chain. In our last chain, we're going to stitch 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. And that's going to give us 37 double crochets across. Now we're going to turn our work we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the first chain. 1, 2, and now we're going to stitch 1 double crochet all the way down, and this is called working in the other or opposite side of the chain. And you'll notice a natural curling right there, and that's going to be the corner of the top of the hood. All right, so now we're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of the chains, working down the opposite or other side of the chain. We stitched 2 double crochets in the first stitch on this side, and now we're stitching 1 double crochet, working all the way down the other side of the chain. I completed that row, stitching 1 double crochet in each chain. Back up and make sure you put 1 double crochet in that first chain 3, because we need 37 on this side and 37 on this side, and that's going to give us a total of 74 double crochets. Now we're going to chain 3 and turn. And what we're going to do now is our chain 3 counts is our first double crochet, and now we're going to double crochet in each of those double crochets and work all the way around to the other side. We'll work our double crochets all the way up around the end and then all the way to the other side for row 2. So I've stitched 1 double crochet in each double crochet up. I'm to the rounded corner, and I just wanted to show you that you just stitch 1 double crochet in each of those double crochets, working around the top. I'm calling it a corner, but it's the corner of the hood, but really it's rounded. See? And you just work 1 double crochet in each of those stitches, and that again you can see forms the hood of the back of the hood. All right, and then you just work on down the side, 1 double crochet in each double crochet. I completed that row. We stitched 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets all the way around. All right, and so now we're going to chain 3 and turn. And what we're going to do for the next 2 rows is repeat what we did on row 2. Our chain 3 counts is our first, and then 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets around. Chain 3 and repeat. So we're going to repeat row 2 for 2 more rows. I have completed those 2 additional rows of 1 double crochet in each double crochet around, chain 3, turn, and repeat. So now I have 4 rows of my first color. Now, if you're not changing colors, you don't have to worry about changing colors. But I'm striping mine every 4 rows like I did the body portion of my shawl so that the hood matches the shawl. All right, so if you're not changing colors, go ahead and chain 3. But since I'm changing colors, I'm going to cut my first color and bring in my second. And remember, when you change colors, make sure you do your chain 3 after the color change, because that chain 3 counts as one double crochet. And if you don't do that, you'll have one stitch in the wrong color. All right, so like we did with the shawl, we're going to add just that little stay knot, and I like to do that because it just helps it stay put. And then we're going to stitch over those stitches, and we're going to go back to just doing one double crochet in each of the double crochets around. And I'm going to do this for 4 rows in this color, and then 4 rows in the blue, the royal blue, and 4 rows in that green, I believe, called seaweed. And so I'm going to be doing 4 rows of each color. What you're going to want to do is to continue to repeat row 2 for 12 more rows, so that you have 16 rows of double crochet in each stitch around, chain 3, and turn. All right, so I'm going to be changing mine every 4 rows so that I have 4 rows of 4 colors, which is 16 rows. And so you're going to need to repeat row 2 for 12 more rows for a total of 16 rows for your hood. So I've stitched those additional rows. I now have 16 rows, 4 rows of each color. And if you feel like this isn't enough rows, you want to make more rows to make your hood just a little bit deeper, go ahead and measure, make sure it's where you want it to be, and then you can add more rows of the double crochet if you want to. Once you're satisfied that that's as many rows as you need, we're going to chain 1 after our last double crochet row, and then single crochet in each of those double crochets. And you'll just stitch 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets all the way around this row. And then once you have single crocheted all the way around the front of your hood, because this is the opening, don't tie off your yarn. We're going to use that yarn to attach the hood to the shawl. Now I do have a little bit of tidying up to do, so I'm going to finish this row of single crochet and then weave in my ends so I can put this on my shawl. I stitched that row of single crochet all the way around the edge of my hood, and then I took a few minutes to go ahead and tidy up where I changed colors. Make sure that you weave in that yarn at the beginning where we started as well. All right, and so this is how our hood looks. And now we're ready to add it onto our shawl. So here's my shawl, and what I do is I fold it in half, and I'll mark it. I'm just going to use my other crochet hook that's sitting here to show me that that's the center of my shawl, and I'm going to open it up. Now this is the inside of my shawl, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hood. I'm going to move that crochet hook up here so I can see, and I'm going to line up my center of my hood with that crochet hook, and then I'm going to put them together like this. You can use a pin or something else, all right, if you want to. This is where we're going to be stitching from. Don't want to lose that loop there. And try to line that up evenly in the center. Give it a good eyeball look. Now you can measure if you want to. Measure, make sure it's all lined up. I don't. I just go by my center row and add my hood on. All right, and I'm just going to leave that there to help me. And I want to make sure by looking at my ends of my rows and measuring the ends of my rows that I have the same amount on each side of my shawl. Because we want our hood to be centered in the middle. All right, now this is the inside of our shawl and the inside of our hood, and we've got the edges together. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into the side here and here. That first stitch, there we go. And we didn't cut our yarn when we finished our last row here of single crochet. So we're going to pull that loop through, do a little chain one, and now we're just going to single crochet across this in order to stitch the hood to the shawl. All right. And my suggestion is to put your stitches pretty close together. We don't want it to bunch up, but we want it to be secure. And the best way to do that is to put your stitches close. And of course, you want to stitch in stitches and not holes in order to hold that hood in place. And we're just evenly single crocheting across, stitching the shawl to the hood. And you might stitch your stitches a little closer than normal when you're stitching around something evenly, because again, we want this to hold securely. Now, there might be a spot where there isn't a spot to put it in a stitch and you have to stick it in a hole, and that's okay. Those other stitches around it will hold it. All right, so we began over here, and all we're doing is stitching the shawl to the hood, evenly crocheting single crochet stitches. Trying to get in stitches and not holes. All right, there we go. Had to go in a hole there. Got us a little tangle. There we go. So we'll make sure we go in a stitch on this next one so we can make sure that holds snugly. I want to make a few more stitches and then show you what it looks like from underneath the hood. So I'm going to pull that loop big so it doesn't come out. Pull my yarn over. I'm going to turn here and show you. This is where we're stitching our stitches on to stitch the hood onto the shawl. So you want to make sure you make them nice and neat. All right, so I'm just going to continue across, stitching the hood onto the shawl. I have stitched across with single crochets evenly, stitching the shawl and the hood together. Here's my last stitch, and I'm going to cut my yarn and tie that off. Now, we want to make sure that that is securely attached, but one thing also to remember is that we're going to stitch a trim around the entire edge, and the edge is going to come up, it's going to go back around the hood here and across, and that's going to be the first thing that we're going to do for part 3. We're going to stitch that trim on. But still, make sure you weave that in securely. So now we have our shawl with our hood attached. There's the back. And I'm very happy with how my shawl is turning out. We stitched up our shawl in step or part 1. We stitched up our hood and attached it to our shawl for step 2. Now all we have left to do is step 3 or part 3. And on part 3, we're going to add the trim around our whole shawl and hood. And then we're going to stitch up the pockets and sew them on. And then our hooded wrap shawl with pockets will be complete. And I'm very excited to see my finished